What's up, gents? Happy to see everybody for another episode of Blind Pig, courtesy of bgobsession.com. You can find us online at bgobsession.com, better known as BGO. Also, Twitter, Instagram. I think we've got the
Facebook for the old folks.
Yep, as well as on YouTube. So if you're following us on YouTube, please like and share and subscribe. And then on Apple Music and all major podcast platforms. I think we're on 17, correct, John?
Yeah, we're pretty much out there. If you want
We're
to
out
hear
there. So
Blind
like,
Pig, it's out there.
subscribe, comment. We enjoy comments. We like to mix it up. Join the site. We appreciate all of it. So hook us up. Today we're going to start digging a little bit into our first round of position groups that for the draft. When I set this schedule, I intentionally put quarterback at the end of the conversation because everybody's beating quarterback like a dead horse right now, which isn't going to get any better. But at the same time, I don't know that we need to just throw our kerfluffle into the rest of the kerfluffle yet. But I think we can all pretty much assume it's going to be a quarterback at 2. What happens after that is when it starts to get interesting. Curious to you guys, just so that we can lay out some of the thought processes here before we really get rolling. How many of you all think we trade back up into the first and actually take a quarterback?
Describe that a little bit more. You mean like drop down? You just turned your mic off, bro.
No, trade back up. So take a quarterback at 2 and then trade back up into the second half of the first round
To
take a tackle or guard,
tackle.
any lineman. Yeah.
I do. As a matter of fact, that's how I prepared. The 2 guys I picked are in that exact scenario.
Yeah, I totally don't think that's going to happen because we need every draft pick we have, and this is the most tackle-rich draft in like 20 years. There's absolutely no need to do it. So I don't think we'll do that at all. I think we'll take the best tackle available with that next pick or cornerback, one of those 2. That's just my opinion.
My little one wants to say hi. So, what you said live broadcast. All right, baby, go to bed.
Hi.
Hey, babe.
All right, so
Tell your daddy which tackle to talk about.
Yeah, that's right. She's my professional. She's the real one. So, without further ado, I'll go ahead and launch this. I am first, teeing things off. I am looking at things more along the lines of trading back up, probably into the bottom half of the 20s in the first round, and looking at a guy like Jordan Morgan. Jordan Morgan, just some quick notes. He's a big boy. Where'd my notes go? Not enough pages. There we go. 6'5", 311. He actually tore his ACL, unfortunately, in November of 2022. But he was able to come back and return for week 1 of that following season in 2023. And all he did is follow it up with a first-team All-Pac-12 appearance that season. 3-year starter at left tackle, very experienced. He's actually had over 1,200 or 2,400 snaps as an offensive lineman at left tackle. So he's got a ton of experience. And I think I just turned off my screen share. Beyond that, I've seen him mocked as high as the top half of the second round in the top 10. Draft Network actually has a first round grade on him. So for a guy who we can trade back up after to hopefully anchor that left side, this is kind of my guy. Next up. That's Paul, right?
Yeah, I think so.
Yes.
Ivy League boy.
Derek, did you have other guys that you were going to talk about beforehand?
We're going to rotate 1, 2, and 3 so that you don't have to listen to me for like 7 minutes because nobody wants to do that.
Okay. So I guess I'll share a little bit about Karan Amagaji. He's a Yale player, so small school prospect. And it seems like every draft cycle, there's one of those small school prospects that, gets everybody excited. And he seems to be one of those guys this particular year. He's got a little bit of an interesting story. Parents are from Africa. Was naturally a basketball player. Was not one who really took the football from an early age, so he wasn't really living and breathing the sport. It wasn't until his sophomore season that he started playing football religiously, I should say. And he only received one FBS offer, and that being from Central Michigan. He was a guy that, prioritized academics. His family prioritized academics. Naturally ended up going to Yale. What's to like about this guy, and what is it that is making him a very, very intriguing prospect? He's basically a poster boy for what an offensive tackle should look like in the NFL. So he's basically a physical specimen, 6'5", 226 pounds. He's got a 86-inch wingspan with 36-inch arms. One of the guys that I talked about last year was kind of similar, that being DeJuan Jones. He was just one of those massive space heaters. The Browns ended up picking him. He had a really, really solid rookie season. In regards to Amegadjie, he's got that massive frame. He's athletic. He's got great intelligence. He's described as being a little bit of a dancing bear, very, very light on his feet, someone who's really, really coachable. He's got a lot of confidence in himself as well. He was quoted a little while ago as proclaiming himself as a can't miss prospect. He doesn't have a ton of experience. He played in 2021, 2022 seasons with Yale. He played over 1,300 snaps those seasons, and only gave up 1 sack. He earned all Ivy League honors. Unfortunately, last year, 4 games into his season, he had a pretty serious injury to his quad, basically derailed his season. So, as I said, some of the concerns about him, he's got 24 games of experience at the college level at Yale. I mean, he's not playing top-level competition. He's still recovering from his injury and wasn't able to participate in the Senior Bowl. But what I found intriguing was that Washington has a top 30 visit scheduled with this guy. So, I mean, he's unproven because of the level of competition that he's faced, but he's got that prototypical size. He's that physical specimen. He can certainly be a developmental project and a high risk, high reward type player. I don't think that they would pick this guy like on day 2 to come in and be an immediate starter. They would have to have a stopgap in the meantime and allow this guy to develop. And it can be someone that really pays dividends for you later on down the road. So that's what I got in regards to him.
Well, no question about his smarts, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And Paul, you said 226, 326, maybe?
Yes, 226 would be 226 would be concerning. I apologize if I said that.
No, that's all right. I was thinking that guy could be a pretty good small forward.
Yeah, I definitely meant 326. So
Okay.
yes.
All right. Next up,
Marius Mims. This is one of my guys. So I went into this looking for guys that were generally ranked between 20 and 30, that if we loved them, that you had the potential to move up without probably having to pay too big a cost, one of our seconds and maybe a third or a fourth or whatever, or because they have a little bit in terms of question marks, they might drop where we don't have to trade back up. So ideally, that would be what I'd want. Amarius Mims is a big man. He's 6'7". He was listed at one point during the season at 360. He ended up at the combine coming in at 340. Big question with Amarius is he only started 8 games at Georgia in his 3 years. Played in games, but he had an ankle injury about halfway through the season and missed the rest of it. What you're looking at here is just a huge man who's athletic. And I'll just say editorially, all of these guys that we're talking about now, I'm old enough to remember when guys 6'6" and 340 could barely move, much less run 5.07 40s like this cat does. And pass block. Anyway, Amarius has got good feet. He's got a strong punch. He looks like he has a chance. He is a right tackle, by the way. NFL.com in their profile says that he has a good chance to play at either side if he ends up being coachable. He's that nimble for a man his size. If he's a coachable guy and wants to play, he's got all the tools. I mean, this is clearly an athlete and a big old dude. On his the NFL draft sites talk about him as a day one prospect with talents to be considered at either tackle position, with really high ceiling physically. The question is going to be whether his lack of experience and the injury sour teams a little bit, and he might just happen to drop. This is the kind of guy I can see, like Paul was saying, with the Yale gentleman, not necessarily a day one starter, but a guy that if he proves to be a professional about his craft could play in this line for 10 years.
All right, next up we have Olu Fashanu.
Yeah, I've been high on this guy for months now, and I was thinking, with 4 games to play in the season, right, and it looked like we were going to end up in that 5, 6, 7 range. I was thinking this was the perfect guy for that, because he was projected at that point in time to be the top tackle in the draft. His stock has dropped somewhat, and I think I finally figured out why this afternoon when I started digging around. But we'll back up a little bit, right? 6'6", 312. 5.1 second 40-yard dash. Yeah, Mark, I'm in that same boat with you. These guys, this is like a freight train. I mean, it's just scary how fast these guys run now. Red shirt junior, he's 21. He's a local kid. He's originally from Waldorf, Maryland, so he'd kind of be coming home to play for Washington. The things that really jumped out at me when I started looking at stuff. He has allowed 0 sacks and 1 quarterback hit in his career in college. We're not talking his senior year. That's all he has given up ever. Now, he played for Penn State, so there were only 633 pass attempts in his starting career, but still, that's 633 pass attempts without a sack and only 1 quarterback hit, which I found it really impressive. His tape is just mind-bogglingly good when you watch him pass protect. He's rated as the number 4 pass protecting tackle in this draft. If he's number 4, the first 3 guys have to be amazing. This dude's hands work independently. He's got a great punch from either direction. His hips change direction like a cornerback. And he's just all over whoever the defender is. There is almost, you just don't see much in the way of weaknesses in his pass protection game. The only thing I really came across that might make you think twice is sometimes he has a little bit of problem with tackle end switches in game, but watching the tape, I didn't see any evidence of that. He was picking guys up and throwing them around when they came his direction, regardless of where they started. So, run blocking would be the problem here, and I think that's why he's dropped down the ranks. Right now, most of the mock drafts have him going late teens, early 20s, no matter who it is that's mocking, right? I mean, I looked at a dozen different mock drafts today, and everybody's got him down the board as like the 4th tackle.
That's crazy, because he was like the unequivocal guy coming into the offseason.
Yeah, which is really what blew me away, right? I mean, we talk about how fast some kids rise up the draft board, like, Jaden Daniels was a 4th round pick at the end of last college season, 2022, and now suddenly he's being talked about in the top 3 of the draft, right? And this kid went the other direction for some reason. All I can think is it's because the stock on guys like Latham and Alt and Fontenot out of Washington have really gone up. Fontenot, the last time I looked, was rated at like mid to low second or a high to mid second round. And now suddenly he's being talked about in the upper teens, maybe even as high as 12, right? So I think maybe that's got something to do with it. But this kid would just be amazing. Run blocking is a problem. He struggles to move blockers off the point of attack. He's not great in space. You know, for those of us that got used to watching, you know, Trent Williams handle anything and everything while on the run out in space, this is not that kid. However, one quote jumped out at me from his coach at Penn State: high production, low maintenance. And I love the sound of that. I don't want any drama. And then all this kid does is produce. And all the reports say he is highly, highly coachable, which I think is probably something that Quinn and team are probably looking for. So again, like Mark, if we choose to jump back up into the first round, I think this is a guy that we might be thinking about doing that for. He sounds like the guy you want protecting the blind side of a rookie quarterback. Just my 2 cents. I really like the kid.
I like it. Next guy up is Graham Barton.
So Graham Barton played for the last 3 seasons as the starter at left tackle for Duke. Certainly not a football powerhouse, but I really like this kid. And you just mentioned Dan Quinn. I think I think this kid fits that kind of mold of smash people in the mouth, toughness. Every description I've read of Graham Barton talks about a mean streak. So he plays mean and tough. I wanted to mention one other thing before I get into Graham Barton. I think a lot of there are so many freaking good tackles. Like we're going to cover like 15 guys tonight, plus that could be tackles. But I think there's so many really good tackles in this class that you're going to see like half of them drafted and then converted to guards, whether they like it or not, or centers, because the talent level is so good in this draft. So I think that could happen to any of the guys that I'm going to talk about tonight. But anyway, Graham Barton is 6'5", 314 pounds. So he's a big kid, 22 years old. He played all 3 of the last seasons, 21, 22, 23, for a total of 34 games. Gave up 2 sacks each of the last 2 seasons. So he's pretty damn good in pass protection. He's getting projected as a center. And I don't know whether he's got shorter arms. That's the only, and you know, nowadays the NFL is all about the measurables, right? They like, oh, they've got to have like 30. I think you were talking about somebody earlier that had 36-inch arms. I think his are 32 and change. So he's got these little T-Rex arms. I mean, I'm not a big believer in some of that stuff because I think, you know, it's not the size of the arms, the fight in the arms. It's, you know what I'm saying? I think he's going to be a damn good player, but whether he decided and his agent decided he'd have a better chance at starting as a center, that's kind of where he's getting projected now. But I also think he didn't play center in college. I think he could also be moved to guard if we thought he was the right guy for that. He's very explosive, and you can kind of tell by his body type. He gets great leverage. He's one of these, he's always blasting up at guys. He's never going to get rocked back on his heels like some of the taller offensive linemen do. I mentioned the mean streak, especially in the running game. And he's one of these guys that he blocks really well at the point of attack on the run game, but he's one of these guys that lives for the second level and will lay guys out. Like, you know, he'll pursue and lay guys out for that running back. And I really love that. He's very coachable. He's a team leader, high football IQ, really good work ethic. So he's kind of like my blue chip guy. If we were going to draft a guy and say, hey, we're going to make you the best damn right guard in the league or wherever we want to put him, I think he could do it. That's what I got.
Sweet.
Barton.
Next up is me. This is my guy. This is the guy I'm pitching I'm planting my flag in this guy. Brandon Coleman out of TCU. This is my dude. Doing research on him. 6'4", 313. He's long, as you can tell. What really jumps off the page at me, he's described as wide body, thick frame and build with big hands and very good arm strength. And he knows how to aggressively and accurately fit his hands into the frame of rushers, independent or two, blah, blah, blah. There's a whole bunch of minutia. But this is what else got me. In 2020, he played 4 games at right tackle, 0 sacks given up. In 21, he had 11 games at left guard, 0 sacks given up. In 2022, in 13 games, he played left tackle. He gave up 3 sacks. And then in 2023, in 11 games, with 8 of them being at left tackle and the other 3 being at left guard, he gave up 1 sack. He's a team captain. I've seen him mocked. Or he was a team captain in 23. I've seen him mocked as late as the 6th and as early as the 4th. But interesting guy. Obviously versatile. Has played everywhere. And originally he was born in Virginia. He actually moved to Germany because he was part of a military family. His mom's German. His dad was in the military. Then he moved back to the States, attended high school football in Texas, and went on to TCU, where he was, as I just rattled off, a multi-year starter.
Say it with me. Position flex.
Flex, yeah. No, that's a Ron Rivera word. I say versatility, okay? But this guy's a big hoss, and he can play in multiple areas. So to your point, John, this is a guy you could draft, move inside the right guard, let him play right guard for a season or two, and then shift him out to right tackle. If you get your starting left tackle.
Eric, you gotta show us somebody tonight who doesn't have braces on both their legs, man. It makes me nervous.
Well, hey, look at every lineman has
I
braces
know.
on both his legs.
It's the thing now, right?
Including this guy, Christian Mahogany, who's got braces on both of his legs also.
Yeah, I know. It is the thing now, right?
Bro, if I'm playing in the interior now with guys who are 6'6", 340, I'm wearing braces on my knees too.
I almost feel like that's like a requirement of the school. I wonder if there's like insurance tied to that. I'm guessing. I'm just talking off the top of my head. But if I were an insurer for the school, I might be requiring that. I see it on all the offensive linemen.
I do know that some schools do require it.
Yeah.
I don't know how far that extends, or if the NCAA is involved in that at all. But I mean, if you can do the job and wear those things, do it.
Yeah.
Well, Paul, this is your dude.
Yeah, this is my guy. So I'm going to be honest with you. When I made my selections for this evening, I didn't focus on any day one guys because I figured you guys would probably do a really good job of covering that. So Mahogany's a guy that would be probably one of those guys slotted into day two. I'm thinking more along the lines of a 3rd round pick. And he's strictly a guard. He's 6'2", 318 pounds. He's got a really massive frame. One of the reasons why I selected him, and one of the reasons why I was attracted to him as a prospect, is because he's a tone setter. John was alluding to it with Graham Barton, a really, really physical guy. And I mean, watching our offensive lines over the years, I'm just completely tired of our group being pushed around, our group not being able to get a yard on 3rd and inches, or getting that critical yard on 4th down or whatnot. I want tone setters. I want guys who are nasty. And if that's the case, a guy like Mahogany might be someone who fits the bill. I know that Joe Witt talked a lot about being violent on defense. I hope that is part of the attitude and part of the identity that we want to instill on offense as well. Because a guy like Mahogany, he's basically one of those guys that has awesome power. He wants to hurt you. He's described as being a mauler. I love the word snowplow, especially being Canadian. He's described as being a snowplow on a road grader in pulling assignments. He's been cited as being one of the most aggressive attackers amongst offensive line prospects. And I mean, we need that. Like, when was the last time we can say that we were a physical group up front? It's been forever. He completely buries you as a pull guard. And he's described as being one of those players that goes 1,000 miles an hour. Part of what I love with the draft is hearing about the stories of players as well. Not just learning about their, physical skills and attributes and whatnot, but he's got a pretty cool story. He was a player that was really close to his dad. His dad passed away in 2015. His grandmother, who was considered to be like a second mother to him, passed away in 2021. In that time frame as well, he had a really close high school teammate that passed away also. How did he respond to all that? He responded to it in 2023 by being named to the All-ACC team. I should mention in 2022, he blew out his ACL. So, I mean, The guy obviously has coping skills. He has the coping skills that you need to make it in the NFL. He's dealt with plenty of adversity and always bounced back. He's got a few concerns. He's going to be 24 next year, so he's an older prospect. He has to learn how to play within himself a little bit more. His aggressiveness sometimes gets the best of him. But I mean, if we're looking for a guy that can provide some really, really good depth instantly on the interior of our offensive line, this might be a guy to consider. When you think of a guy like Nick Allegretti, who we brought in, the guy's only started 13 games over the last 4 years. So how's he going to hold up? So I think it'd be a good idea to have some insurance. And I think that this might be a guy that gives us a bit of that insurance.
Hey, Paul, is it fair to say this kid Mahogany can really lay the wood, but might need more polishing? Is
Oh
that-
my God.
Oh,
Oh,
you did not.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, you did. Never mind.
Yeah, I think that's a fair assessment.
JC Latham is next.
JC Latham.
You can follow that, Mark.
I'm not even going to try. So just a couple of quick observations on what we've been talking about, and this will tie into JC Latham and what I was going to say about him. Paul, you mentioned it with the kid from Yale, and John, you mentioned it with the kid from Duke. These guys that are just attitude players, right? Who have that mean streak. And Paul, I had the same exact thought that you were just talking about, echoing what Whit said about the defense. I would like to see that reflected on both sides of the ball. And the offensive line is the place where you set that tone, right? Where you got guys.
Oops.
Who hit pause on Mark?
Why don't we move on and we'll come back to him.
I got you. Blake Fisher.
Oh, Mr. Fisher. So, I was looking at, I think this is probably a day. He's going to be more of there's my notes. I'm like, where'd I put my notes? I think he's going to be a late day 2, early day 3 kind of a guy. He's been a right tackle primarily, at Notre Dame. Almost his entire time there was as a right tackle, except as a freshman. As a pure freshman, he came in and won the left tackle job outright, and then got injured like in the second game. And Joe Alt's pretty much played the position ever since at Notre Dame. So you can see why maybe Fisher didn't, slot right back into that role. 6'3", 322. Oh, sorry, wrong guy. 6'6", 312 rather. Ran a 5.2 40-yard dash, 9 sacks, 6 hits in his college career, 864 pass attempts, nimble feet, highly reactive athleticism. Watching the tape of him, you kind of, watching the tape of him, I mean, I keep reading about the athleticism, and really it's athleticism in his legs and his feet. He's really fairly stiff. His upper body is fairly stiff. He's got a few issues with consistency and control, but the guy is a great run blocker with a tremendous ability to get to the second level, and he's fantastic engaging in space. We've talked about this on the board and mentioned it a couple of times in previous pods. At least a couple of us think it's very possible we could be looking at taking 2 tackles in this draft. If we do, I think it's probably, one fairly high, and then one, mid-round, late second day, early fourth or early third day. This guy would be great at that, I think. And he's fairly young. He's only 20, right? But he's still got 2 full years of starting under his belt. 3 years with Notre Dame, but 2 full years of starting. And with his age and his experience at high level college football, you've got to think that the guy's, coachable, and there's a tremendous upside with proper coaching. So, a little excited about him. I don't know what happens, obviously, but could be a lot of fun.
Next up is Tyler Guyton.
Yeah, so I'm excited about Tyler, and I think it's pronounced Gayton, but I apologize if that's not correct. So he played primarily right tackle at Oklahoma. He did sub in some at left tackle, but primarily right tackle, played the 21, 22, 23 seasons, all 3 seasons, 26 total games, had 0 sacks in 2, gave up 0 sacks in 2 of those 3 seasons. He's a monster, man. You can kind of tell just from the pictures that I selected. He's 6'7" or 6'8", depending on who you believe, with 327 pounds. And you figure when he gets to the NFL, they're probably going to beef him up to 340 or plus. He started out at TCU, played 2 seasons with the Horned Frogs, and then moved to Oklahoma his last season in 2023. And this kid is an athletic freak. He never played O-line until he got to college. Imagine that. He never played O-line, played defensive end in high school, all the way up in his football career until he got to college, and then switches to offensive tackle and starts. So pretty impressive guy. He's a little raw, as you can imagine. You know, he's only had 3 seasons at any offensive line position. So he's got a super high ceiling. He needs some technique work, but he has super quick feet, very athletic. He's been described as superior in pass protection. His run blocking needs a little bit of work, and I think that's kind of natural because, to me, run blocking is a little bit more nuanced. There's a lot of more things that can go wrong when you're taking off and blocking versus standing there and learning how to pass protect. But he's been described as a human roadblock in more than one draft profile that I've read in terms of pass pro. And one of the quotes that jumped out at me, I think it was maybe from Bleacher Report. They said NFL teams with a pass-heavy approach would be smart to look at Gayton. And I think we are going, I hate to break this news to everybody, but I think we're going to pass a ton. And I think this kid could be like a hidden gem in the draft just because of his physicality and the size and the fact that he's just getting going as an offensive lineman. So he's projected late first round, but I think some of these guys are going to drop into the second and maybe even in the third. He's a big guy
with
braces.
with braces. All right, before you were so rudely interrupted there, Mark, by your questionable internet connection.
I think my government laptop, your tax dollars, I think you need to buy me a new one, because that's the second time that's happened to me in the last few pods.
You had talked about the mean streak, Mark. That's kind of where you froze up.
Yeah. Okay, good. Thanks, John. Latham is a guy who, when I first started looking at him, I was thinking might sneak into the second round. That ain't happening. He made the mistake, as far as I'm concerned, of going to the combine and balling the hell out, and left the 2024 combine as the top ranked OT in production score and the second overall total score from the combine. JC Latham is another mountain of a man, truly a mountain of a man. From Alabama, he's 6'6", 340. He was 2023 second team AP All-American and first team All-SEC. He allowed 2 sacks in 970 career snaps. He's purely a right tackle. And let me skip to the, not bury the lead on this. What got me going on this is, you know how NFL.com's profiles do these sources tell us with anonymous quotes from NFL people. This is from an unnamed NFL personnel executive. This class is deep at tackle, and he's going to end up being the best of the group. They're all going to get better, but he and Alt are the only ones I see operating at the pro level, and Latham is better than Alt. So
But he's a pure right, correct?
He's a pure right tackle, and one of the other write-ups I was saying is that he looks like a guy who could be almost an instant starter at right tackle, and could be an all-pro at right guard. He's another one of those guys that has, I'm calling it positional adaptability, Bob.
And the guy's playing with the big boys at Alabama.
And he's playing in the ACC, in the SEC with the big boys. He ran a 5.12 today at Alabama's Pro Day. He didn't run at the combine because he was dropping some pounds. So when I say he's a big man, on the thread tomorrow, we'll probably end up posting some YouTube vids of their highlights. This kid is one of the criticisms is that he's a little soft, right? That he's too heavy below the waist, bubble butt, somebody called him. But when you watch this kid on the field, he is, I mean, he's just a man. He's just built like a man. He swallows people up. As far as pass blocking, he's got surprisingly nimble feet. He's got good punch. He moves better than you'd expect a man that size to go. But he's going to have to commit himself to his craft. He's the kind of guy who's, I think, going to be trying to stay away from McDonald's and working his ass off and working on his quickness, because you're not going to bull rush him. You're just not going to bull rush this kid. You might be able to quick move him around to the inside, because he's just so damn big. You have to watch the videos and you'll see why I keep talking about that. The other thing that I like about him, and this goes back to what I was trying to say when I got so rudely interrupted before, the two things that jumped out at me from his write-ups, one, that he, in addition to the size, and that I'm talking about an elite physicality, tone setting, physically imposing ability, and demeanor. That was a positive. One of his negatives is aggressive attacking approach sometimes backfires in the run game, with he tends to dip his head, leaving him vulnerable to losing across his face on angle drive blocks. That's coachable. What I don't want to coach out of a kid is an aggressive attacking approach to playing the offensive line.
Yeah, what do they always say? You'd rather, it's a lot easier to bring them down from 150 than up from 50.
Yep, reel him in a little bit. So if this kid turns out to be coachable and wants to be an NFL player, he's a potential fixture at right tackle for many, many years. And in the run game, I mean, forget it. He makes holes. I don't think he's suited for zone. I don't think he's suited for zone blocking, right? Because he's 6'6", 340. But you put him in a power type gap scheme and let him go after people. That's a guy who I really look forward to watching him play at the next level.
Very cool. All right. So my last guy, Drake Nugent. You'll notice at the top it says Drake Nugent, Michigan, but he's wearing Stanford colors. He ended up as a senior in his senior year at Michigan, but in his first 3 seasons playing college football, he was at the University of Stanford. To your point, one of the little blurbs I saw on him, scouting reports strengths, showing some nastiness to his game. Nugent will sustain blocks through the whistle, thriving when he is in the phone booth. This guy is a dedicated center. He's played center for 4 seasons, essentially. 39 games between Michigan and Stanford. In 2022, he was actually a team captain at Stanford before then transferring to Michigan, where he not only was the starting center, but he won the Natty. So he was a starting center on one of the best offensive lines in the country. Flashes the ability to move his man with his hands, but is not yet consistent in this area. That's one of his weaknesses. So you're saying he's shown the ability, he's just inconsistent. To your point, Mark, that is something that is 100% coachable. Consistency is key. I like him. Oh my gosh, I just lost my page. The last thing to bring up on him is he comes from NFL bloodlines. His father, Terry Nugent, actually played for the Colts and the Browns, and his had an extended family with a college background. His uncle Brian played at Washington State. So this guy, he's generally a 6th to 7th round pick, which is kind of surprising considering where he's coming from. But I could see us not necessarily taking him early, but with one of the multi-day 3 picks, grab this guy and let him kind of learn on the tutelage of Tyler Biadasz when there's no pressure to start. Maybe roll him in at guard to begin with.
No family concerns about his crazy uncle?
Ted Nugent? I believe he is related to Ted Nugent, but I don't know that anybody's really worried about that if he's winning football games.
Hey, if he's got that attitude, I'll sign him up.
Yep. I will just finish a little bit undersized. He's about 6'2", 298. He could probably put on about 10 pounds of NFL weight and be okay. Next up is Isaiah Adams.
Yeah, I have Isaiah Adams. And I apologize. I picked Isaiah Adams because he is a native Canadian. So he's a fellow countryman of mine. He's 6'4", 316 pounds. I also partially picked him because he's got a pretty cool story behind him. He actually spent his first 2 years of college university football playing here in Canada at Wilfrid Laurier University. And as we all know, Canadian university football is not at the level of US American football. But he's risen up the ranks pretty quickly. After 2 years at playing here in Canada, he played a year at a JUCO school before finally finding home with Illinois in the Big Ten. He did start his last 2 seasons in college football. He split his time with Illinois, playing left guard. He played a little bit of right tackle. He also had a little bit of spot duty at left tackle mixed in there as well. He was a team captain, and as I mentioned, he shot up the ranks pretty quickly. A pretty decent accomplishment being a 2-time academic all Big Ten performer. So, I mean, when you consider this guy's path, started at a Canadian university, went to JUCO, now finding himself playing in the Big Ten. He's grown at a pretty quick rate, and been pretty successful while doing so. Some of his strengths, real quick. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on him because I mean he's your late day 3 flyer. He's got really good lower body strength and power to anchor. He's pretty versatile. I mentioned that he started over 10 games at both left guard and at right tackle. He played guard and tackle as well at the Senior Bowl. He's got some experience in a variety of schemes. Similar to Christian Mahogany, he's described as a pretty effective run blocker and someone who can pull and get out into space and do a really good job at that. One of the quotes that I found interesting was that he run blocks like it was what he was born to do. I thought that was pretty cool. He's one of those guys that's going to work through the whistle, and he's always looking for work. He's got a few concerns. Doesn't always keep his feet moving in pass protection. He gets a little bit tall in his stance as well, which could lead to problems for him. At the end of the day, this is a guy that, you know, if you're picking him late on day 3, he's probably a reserve ready player. He's going to be someone who is probably best suited at guard, but I thought he was a pretty cool prospect because with those late day 3 flyers, sometimes you want guys that can play multiple spots on your offensive line, guys that can fill in and, serve you in a pinch type thing. And he might be able to do that. I found it pretty interesting that the team met with him at the Combine, at the Senior Bowl, and they also had pro day meetings with them. So, I mean, there's probably a level of interest there. Whether they actually, act on it and decide that he's worthy of a late round pick, it's yet to be determined. But I mean, I'm going to be rooting for the guy as a fellow Canadian.
All right, next up is Cooper Beebe.
Man, I loved watching this guy. This is shades of, oh, I hate to say this, shades of Russ Grimm. He's got a really mean streak. So 6'3", 322, primarily a left guard, although interestingly enough, he has played right tackle. He played over 100 snaps this last year at right tackle. So they kind of moved him around a little bit when they needed to plug people in or had injury concerns other places, and he played well. Again, 2 sacks, 6 hits, over 1,150 pass attempts in 3 years as a starter at K-State.
He's got 2 braces on. He fits my requirement.
There you go. He 2-time 2022, 2023 Big 12 Offensive Lineman of the Year. And he was a consensus 2023 All-American. So, we're not talking about a lightweight here. Interestingly enough, I've seen him mocked anywhere from early 2nd all the way to early 4th. I'm not sure what's up with that. I don't know why the range there. But he's described as having a tremendous level of intelligence, a great football IQ. In fact, one review of him I saw talked about him recognizing defenses as well or better than the quarterback, and helping the quarterback out with defensive calls, which I thought was, brilliant. He's an elite pass protector on the inside. He's adept at getting to the second level. He is an absolute bulldozer at the point of attack in all of the video that I watched. Some of the things that may hamper him a little bit, shorter arm length than maybe ideal in the NFL. He's got some challenges with lateral movement. I'll tell you what, he has absolutely no challenges with straight ahead, straight line speed. The dude ran a 5 flat, 40-yard dash. They say that maybe the adjustment to NFL athleticism, because he didn't play in like the SEC, right? He was K-State rather than maybe one of the more bigger schools. But an adjustment to NFL level athleticism is going to be crucial. But I think you can say that about almost any offensive lineman, right? They're not playing against college guys anymore. And I don't care if you were even at Alabama. The guy across the line from you probably has another 4, 5, 6 years of experience, and they've gotten cagey. So you're going to have to adjust to it no matter what. I see that. I have no clue where he's going to go. I think it really depends on the team, but he may very well be the best guard in this draft.
All right. Next up is Kingsley. That's on you, John.
Yeah, Kingsley Suamataia is 21-year-old, played at BYU. He actually, like one of the other guys I talked about, played a full year in 2022. He played right tackle for BYU. In 2023, he played left tackle. Played every game the last 2 seasons. And he's another extremely athletic player with a high ceiling. He's 6'5", 6'6", depending on who you listen to, 315 pounds, very explosive and quick. He needs a little bit of work in pass protection. But again, BYU plays all that RPO stuff. So he was able to be a full-time starter on both sides of the line, pass protecting on pretty complex passing plays and rushing downs. He was team captain in 2023, which that always kind of jumps out at me because, I think that means something at the college level. He does really well with bull rushers. He's just super powerful, has really good lateral quickness to cut off the edge. You guys talked about 40 times with both Fashanu and Beebe, both. Well, this guy ran a 5 flat at the combine and has run sub 5. That's pretty freaking quick for a sick guy who's 6'5", 6'6", 315 pounds. Just on a side note, I thought this was interesting. He was on 4 straight high school state championship football teams. I'm sure he wasn't the only one that had anything to do with that, and he is the cousin of right tackle Penei Sewell. You might recognize that guy's name.
He's kind of good. Okay.
Right.
He's probably not going to be a one-day starter, but that's why I really like him, because I think this could be one of those guys. Suamataia, I just like saying Suamataia. It sounds like an O lineman, right? I think he could be one of those guys who's like underdrafted, and then 3 years from now he's a Pro Bowler. That kind of a talent. That's what I got.
Sweet. One more big picture of this. I love the dudes with the arm tats. Like, he'll get along with Lavu, right? Have you seen that guy's picture?
Yeah.
Yep.
All right, last one to talk about tonight. Zach Zinter.
Yeah, I guess I was overachieving. I was thinking 2 tackles and 2 interior linemen. So, and I was thinking high and low. So Zinter's my late day. Well, no, he's going to be a day 4 guy more than likely, or day 3 guy. There aren't 4 days to the draft. As much as the NFL would probably like to stretch it to 4 days, They haven't figured out how to do that yet. So Zinter's out of Michigan. Another serious freak of a specimen, right? 6'6", and where did I put his weight? Hang on, there it is. 6'6", 322. 3-year starter for Michigan. So he's been around for a little bit. He's also the oldest prospect I looked at. He's 22 and will be 23 sometime before not training camp, but the season kicks off. So been around for a little bit. He's really only played right guard anywhere that I've seen stats posted. 2,300 total college snaps, 1,100 passing attempts, and he gave up 3 sacks and 4 hits total. Every review I read talked about his nasty streak. He just likes to hit people, and likes to just own them. Apparently, he's good at getting outside. He's got fairly quick feet, and he excels at the run block game. Although 3 sacks and 4 total hits in 3 years as a starter. If I had a right guard that only gave up 1 sack a year, actually we do right now in Cosme, but the point is we've got to have some depth, right? That's got to come from somewhere. And I cannot imagine we don't draft a guard in this draft somewhere. So, just thinking out loud, he looks great in those later rounds. So there you go.
Certainly coming out of the right offense at the right time, right? He's coached
Yep.
up and can play big time ball.
Yep. And played right next to, Derek Center from earlier today. So, he's in good company, right?
I was just going to say about this, guys, we've done this without the benefit of knowing what kind of offense we're going to be running and how we're going to plug these guys in.
True.
Looking at drafts this way is a little interesting because we're not trying to fit them in to a scheme or anything like that or compare them to their predecessors. Doing this for the next year's draft might be a little different, right? We'll be looking for specific kinds of players.
Well, we might actually have an idea of what they're doing.
We better have an idea by that.
We don't even know what scheme they're running right now. There's
That's what
been
I'm
so many
saying.
different speculations of what's going to happen. Is it going to be a power run? Is it going to be an air raid? Is it going to be a
Yep.
Kyler Murray like?
So I slipped in a dad joke tonight, because I just felt like I had to. But for the record, I want it to be noted that I could have said that I really hope we reel in Blake Fisher because he'd be a total catch in the second round. But I did not. So I just want to say credit.
Oh, all right, boys. Next
That's-
week, I don't have the list in front of me, but we'll be breaking down 2 more position groups. Maybe not as in depth because, good Lord, there's a lot of offensive linemen, and we barely even scratch the surface. So,
Yeah, let's get those YouTube videos up, man, because I think that's what gets people really
Yep.
excited.
Mine will be good to go on the thread tomorrow morning.
all right, fellas, it's been a pleasure.
Good job, guys.